We're live. We're going. We're cracking off. Let's have a look at this plan and update anything that needs to be updated. Okay, this should all be that. Yep. Still doing that. All right. Consulting this amazing spreadsheet I have created. Week 2. We're in week 2 now. I think it's week 2. End of week 2. 14th January. Yeah, every 7 days. Week 2. We are having a look at how to get on top of your finances as far as setting up your bank accounts. Now, I have an amazing book for this. Assuming this only gets out to people in Australia, this book is very helpful for you. This right here is the most spectacular book known to man for making sure your bank accounts are all tip-top. Now, this is a book that I read a few years ago now, I think. And it's almost exactly how much or how I manage my bank accounts. Right, so if you follow me on Instagram, I posted a couple days ago what bank accounts I use, how much of my income goes into them, what they're for, what they're called, etc., or what bank they're with as well. Now, this book, without further ado, is called, let me frame this up, The Barefoot Investor by a gentleman named Scott Pape. He's a financial advisor. Officially, that's not the word. He's a certified financial advisor. That was the word I was looking for. And he's written a few iterations of this book. This is the most recent one, I believe. Revised and updated edition, yeah. So he wrote the original version of this book 2002, and he started helping people with their finances in 2002, and he wrote this book more recently than that. So essentially, this book explains how to use your bank accounts, what they should be called, how to set them up, what bank they should be with, etc., etc. And I'm going to run through a little bit about that today, just so that you can understand how I do my things as well, because this is pretty much exactly how I run my bank accounts, and how you can improve your finances as well, because I know that there's a lot of people out there who have just 2 bank accounts, a savings and a spendings, essentially. Now, that's great until you have a payment or an expense or a bill that comes out that you're not quite sure what it's for. So, for example, I used to have that exact same setup, and everything would come out of spendings, right? It would be all my spending money for anything frivolous. If I want to go to the movies or go and buy clothes, or anything I just wanted to buy because I wanted to, would come out of spendings. Also, all my bills would come out of spendings. I didn't have a budget. I didn't know how much money was going towards my bills. I didn't know nothing. So I would always try and calculate in my head every time I wanted to buy something, how much money would I need for the next week or before I got paid, so that all my bills would be paid for. Now, that is not a good way of doing your finances, because more often than not, I would find myself stressing over where my money was going. I couldn't go out and do anything fun because I always thought I needed more for bills when I didn't really. It creates a whole bunch of stress that's not needed. The other problem with that, the 2 bank account setup, is the savings account is well, what's that for? Savings for long term. Okay, what is it long term, like a holiday? Is it long term like you're saving up for a deposit on a house or for a car? Or what if something catastrophic happens and you lose everything? Is that when you bring out the savings? What it needs to be specific, right? And the two bank accounts set up is not specific enough to cover all of the things you might end up spending your money on. And what this book goes through is essentially to stop that. You have like 5 or 6 different bank accounts. I have 6. This book suggests 5, I believe. And it specifies exactly what kind of payments are going to come out of each bank account so that you don't have to worry about anything. You know, all of these payments come out of this account. All of this comes out of this one. This comes out of this one. You know exactly what's going on, right? So the first thing that this book goes through is, let me find the contents here. So it's very big on scheduling a night, it calls it a barefoot date night. Essentially a night that you go out and you just talk about your money, just talk about your finances. I didn't really do that. I just kind of read the whole thing in like a couple of days and did it all in the space of like 3 days. You don't have to do that if you want to take it slower or whatever your, decision is. Also, this book it's $20-something, I think, when I bought it. You can get it from like Big W or a bookstore, basically, anywhere. Right, so the first section of this book, let me find this page, where is it? Oh my goodness, it's miles in. Is he speaks, so the whole book is written, he says in here, it's written as if you were talking to someone just in a normal conversation. So it's not filled with fancy financial words or difficult to understand sentences. It's just really easy to read. Like you and your mate would go to the pub, have a beer, and it's just a conversation back and forth. It's exactly how it's written, which is fantastic for dumb idiots like me who don't know anything and, find a whole bunch of jargon difficult to read. So the first thing I believe he runs through in this is to get yourself an emergency fund. So in this he calls it the Mojo. And what the Mojo is an emergency fund, right? So if you lose everything, something catastrophic happens, your car blows up and you need a new car as soon as possible, your emergency fund is there to save you. And that means putting aside, I believe it's 3 months worth of income into a completely separate bank account as soon as possible. So my Mojo, I'm not sure if it's 3 months worth of income, but it's about 3 months. I use a bank called UBank. I use them specifically because they have a great savings account. It has a 5.10% per annum. All you have to do is deposit $200 per month and it will give you 5.10% as opposed to just 0.10%. And because you're not going to use this money very often, hopefully, unless there's something catastrophic that happens, you're going to get loads and loads of interest, which is fantastic. And it'll just sit there collecting interest. You keep putting more money into it and it's just going to grow and grow and grow. And that, in essence, is what you want, right? You will just want it to sit there and get bigger and bigger, because the bigger that fund is, or the more amount of money that's in there, the bigger the event that can occur that you can then survive, right? So if you have 3 months worth of income and you lose your job, that can be used then to go through and pay your expenses for those 3 months so that you can survive, obviously. But if you have like 10 grand or 20 grand in there, your house can burn down if you don't have insurance. You should, but something worse can happen and you'll have more money there to support you through the hard times. And that's essentially all this is. You're not ever really going to touch this unless you absolutely have to. It's the final straw, right? And you just want to keep putting money in there. Slowly, slowly. You want to get to 3 months expenses as quick as you can, and then you just keep putting money in there. So that's the first thing he recommends. Now, I think everyone should have an emergency fund, because if you don't, then something bad could happen, and then where's your money going to come from? If you have 2 bank accounts, where does the money come from, right? And if you're not good at saving, then you're even more screwed. So first thing, get an emergency fund. Ubank have a great savings account, super easy to open. It takes like 5 minutes to get an account. Stick your stuff in there. They'll send you a card. You have like a savings and a spendings. Once again, the 2 bank account thing. I just use the savings, and then put 3 months worth of money in there, and then you have that net. You have that safety net. Next thing he recommends is to set up your super. Now, there is a government website here in Australia especially that you can look in, and it'll show you the list of all the supers in Australia, and it'll rank them together and compare them on what kind of benefits they have, what kind of negatives they have, and then there you can see how many people use it, if they reviews and all that type of shit. Now that, I believe, let me just double check this. What's that called? Super Fund. Oh, Money Smart, I believe it is. Oh, Your Super Comparison Tool. That's right. So on this website, you can displays tables of different super products, everything. I mean, I think there's quite a few different ones. The government one is obviously always better because it's more reliable, or less reliable depending on what your beliefs are, I suppose. So I used that, and I settled on a super called Australian Super. I think it is the biggest super fund in Australia as well. I have a friend who also uses it and highly recommends it. And so I've been putting my super into there pretty much ever since a few years ago when I first put all this stuff into action. And on there you can customize your investments and stuff like that. They have an app, super easy to set up. Once again, to swap everything over from one super to the other does take a bit of work, but it is possible. You just go to your super that you are currently on, and they'll have a transfer to another super, something like there. You might have to call someone, but it's not that difficult. And then on there, you can, once you have the app and everything set up, you can see exactly how much is coming in, where it's going, what it's doing. Super easy. So that's the second thing, is setting up your super, because a lot of people will get a super fund from their employer and it might actually suck, which is what I had. I got my super fund for my first ever job that I started, and it was terrible. It was awful. They barely gave me any returns on my money that was in there. They were terrible at investing it. It was way down on the scale of how good they were. It was just not great. So what you want to do is you want to get on top of that, because if you can get as much into your super as you can before you retire, then you'll have a big bucket load left. Whereas if you get a crappy super fund and their fees are really high and they're not making you any money because they suck at their jobs, then your super fund will just drain, and then you'll look at it for the first time when you're retiring and there'll be nothing in there, and you'll be like, well, shit. And then you'll be screwed, and that would suck. So, next thing, someone's calling me. Later. So, that's the second thing, is super fund. A lot of people miss that. That is something that's very, very important. Next thing he goes into, trying to flick through this thing here and figure out what's going on, is he sets up his bank accounts. I might have gotten these out of order, but this is all essentially what he goes through. He sets up his bank accounts. So, right. Bank accounts. Now, he suggests swapping banks as well. He says don't use one of the big four banks because I don't know exactly the type of... Oh, fees. He said they all have tremendous fees. What's this? Oh, someone's trying to set up something. Anyway, banks. I'll try and multitask here while I get this flipping code for someone. So, he recommends using a different bank, essentially, right? Now, the bank that I use... Hold on, give me 1 second. Almost done. There you go. So he reckons don't use big four banks, use a different one. What he uses is ING. That's a bank that I use now as well because their fees super low. They give you heaps of interest, way more than any of the other ones. And they have savings and spendings account, right? Now I opened 4 of these accounts. He recommends 4 as well. You get 2 spendings and 2 savings. What I do, the other good thing about this is they have an app as well. Super easy to use. I'll just open this here. So, 4 accounts. One spendings one is daily expenses. Second one is splurge account. What I spend my money on frivolously, right? Going to the movies, going out for dinner, etc., etc. Third, fire extinguisher account. Now that's one of the savings ones. And the last account is the Smile account. That's also a savings account. So, in here, I've got... We'll start with daily expenses. That being a spending account, money is going to be coming in and out of there all the time, right? And what you do with that is exactly what the title is. It's spendings or expenses. So you want to calculate everything you spend your money on in a week or a fortnight. I do it in a fortnight because that's how often I get paid. It's just easy. Do it in a fortnight. Now, once you have that list, you know exactly how much money you need to put aside every week or every fortnight, every time you get paid, right? You know exactly how much of your paycheck goes into this account so that you have enough in there to pay for expenses. Alternatively, what I do is I just get paid from my job. So your wage essentially goes into this account. And then from there, I calculate how much needs to stay in the account in order to pay all my bills. And then I'll transfer out different amounts. So that's the daily expenses. Pretty much, I obviously get paid in there, and then I take most of that out and leave what I need to cover expenses. Second account, or second spendings account, is the splurge. Once again, buying things that are frivolous. You want to go out and buy a new pair of sneakers, you can go buy a pair of sneakers. You want to go and buying games and stuff on Steam if you want to, you know, buying stuff you don't need, really. Now, I put $100 a fortnight into my spendings account, and that's it. So $50 a week. I don't spend much money. I have everything I want and everything I need. The only things I want to spend money on are incredibly expensive, so I end up just stacking it up for, you know, months at a time so that I can afford one thing, right? I bought a pair of shoes not too long ago. It was $650. That's something that I would consider a frivolous spend because I don't need them, but they're cool and they're going to last me forever. So that's splurge. So you can change that. Mine is a fixed amount. Doesn't matter how much I get paid. It will always be $100 a fortnight. Alternatively, you could create it as a percentage, and then a percentage of your paycheck would then obviously go into there. So it would change depending on how much you get paid, unless you get paid the same amount. Now, I don't mind that, except when I first started, I was getting paid quite, not a lot at all. And so I would end up with like $20 in my spendings per fortnight, which is not enough, right? You still got to enjoy your life. Keeping all this in mind, you're still young. You still have to, or maybe you're not young, you still have to enjoy the time that you have, right? So $100 a fortnight into that one. Now we're getting into the savings accounts here. First savings account, fire extinguisher. That's what it's called. And it is exactly for that, putting out financial fires, as Scott mentions in the book. Financial fires includes, you get into a car accident and you need to pay some off to the insurance company or get a new car, whatever it is, pay that little bit of random fees there. Obviously, no one plans on getting into car accidents. If you do, you're a weirdo. Or trying to commit insurance fraud. Don't do that. So that's just an example of, something that happens where you have to fork out money that you don't plan for. More often than not, it's not a good thing, right? Car accident, you lose your job accidentally, and you need to, pay to get a new suit so you can go out and find a new job. Something like that. It's kind of the first safety net out of, the few that you have. So there's that, and then there's Mojo. Mojo is for when it gets really bad. Financial fires or fire extinguisher is for just a little, random bits here and there that you can kind of, that we didn't plan on that, but we can fix that. Something happens with your car, or you crash, or whatever it is. So that's that one. Now I put slightly more into this account as far as percentage goes than any other account, because I like to have that big, first wall before we move into Mojo and the other amounts of money that I have. So that if something does happen, I've got a lot here to, protect me, essentially. So I'm going to open up my laptop here and get you some information on exactly what kind of percentage I put into each account. Okay, fire extinguisher is, I have to try and explain this in layman's terms. So my money comes in, I put 50% of that into investing. I'll talk about that at the end. And then the remaining 50%, I split up between my bank accounts. So my daily expenses will come out of that remaining 50%, my splurge will come out of that remaining 50%, and then all of my savings accounts will also come out of that remaining 50%. I'm really fortunate in that I still live at home. I don't really have to pay a lot of bills, so I can invest 50% of my money into, whatever it is. So that being said, the percentage is 45% of that remaining 50%, which ends up being, I think it's in my post on Instagram, the actual percentage of the whole thing is 20 something or other. Where is it here? What is this? Hang on. Try and find it here. I don't know. No, nope. Not that one. This one. 22.5%. All of this stuff is on my Instagram as well, on my post. So 22.5% of the total money that I get in. It's all very confusing, but if you want to know more, send me a message and I can try and explain it better, I guess. So that is my fire extinguisher account. Now the next account, final proper bank account that I've got is the Smile account. That's the last or the second savings account that I've got. Now that's 25% of that remaining 50% goes into my Smile account. Now this one is used for anything that makes you smile, right? Going on a holiday, if you want to go do, I don't know, holiday is kind of the best example I have. It's kind of like splurge, but saving up for something bigger, right? So if you want to go, I just want to get an iPad, but I want my splurge to be, going out with friends on the weekend, or, those small amounts of purchases. You can save up for that iPad in the Smile account while also continuing to go out with your friends for dinner, or, for drinks or whatever it is. So long-term splurge essentially is what it is. Now, I used this recently to, what did I buy with this? I think it was a laptop. I got my laptop with it, with a little bit that was in there. So, I don't need a laptop, but I would like to have one. So I had about $1,000 in there, and then there was some other bits of money that I managed to pull together. I think it was my birthday as well. Bought a laptop, right? Things that make you smile. Now this, my percentage, 25 of the remaining 50%. Now the last account, and my emergency fund is 30% of that remaining 50%. And that's obviously, your remote. I don't know if I mentioned this. Mojo is the emergency fund, which I spoke about at the beginning. So that's all of the main ones. And that's all of the ones that he mentions in the book as well, right? And he goes through all of this in heaps of detail, different options that you can choose, why you're getting each one, what each one is for. He mentions different super funds and what the pros and cons are of, getting someone to manage your super fund or managing it yourself. He goes through frequently asked questions in here and answers for all those questions. Now, I believe he's gotten these from emails, because he has an email blast that he sends out to all of the people he advises and people that just want some information. That's where all these FAQs come from. He goes through what he uses and why he uses it. It's packed with details, but it's all really easy to use or to read and understand. I read it once, understood the whole thing, and it was just so easy. He gives you examples of other families that have, started using this particular financial setup, if you will, and how much debt they've paid off, what they've been able to achieve after implementing this setup into their lives. Another thing he talks about in here is insurance. Now, this is something I haven't quite gotten to. I might reread this and figure that out, because just recently I got kicked off my parents' plan, which is super unfortunate. So he runs through here different insurance policies to look out for, different insurance providers to look out for, what kind of stuff you should be looking for at what particular age as well. So for young people, you might be looking for more, insurance on your phones, or, small stuff like that young people tend to break, I guess. And as you get older, then you can look at insurance for your house and your car and stuff like that. So that's insurance as well. Private health insurance, different kinds of insurance. Again, FAQ on frequently asked questions that he gets about all the insurance topics and everything. He also talks in here about, there's a chapter in here called How to Live Like a Multimillionaire Right Now. And all of this stuff in here is going to help you get the foundation to manage large amounts of money, right? Because here I want to promote entrepreneurism, making more money, doing good with that money, right? Not just going out and buying Ferraris every second day and flaunting it on Instagram, because that's not providing value to anyone. And arguably you are a worse person if you do that. And we're all about being better than yesterday, right? So if you can make more money, then you can start donating it to charities or to churches or to all these other things, spending it on your family, doing good with it. And what this book will do is it's going to give you the foundation of financial literacy, so that when you make a lot of money, or you start making large quantities of money, you don't go around and end up spending it on dumb stuff that you don't need. It's designed to give you responsibility and control, self-control, impulse control, so that when you get more money in, you know exactly what to do with it, how to make more from the money you get, how to, give more. Because if you use this and you start making millions of dollars, all of a sudden you've got safety nets and huge investing amounts and amounts that you can spend more, as you go through life, and more expenses that you can obviously work on, all that stuff. But if you just have those two accounts, spendings and savings, and you start making millions of dollars, there's no restriction on how much you can spend or how much you can save. Now, sure, you can, put 60% into savings however often, and you might end up all right. But if you don't have this basic knowledge and this foundation of financial literacy, you're going to still end up losing all your money. It's the exact same reason why you end up with lottery winners going, broke a couple years after they win the lotteries, because they don't know how to manage that much money. And that's what this book is going to teach you, because when you inevitably do earn more, you're going to need to know all this stuff so that you don't end up spending it on useless junk and then going broke after you've made that money. He also speaks in here about reducing your expenses, right? A lot of people end up with loads and loads of expenses. Now, he says in here a normal amount is 60% of your income going towards expenses. Now, I believe this is specifically designed for adults who've got a mortgage and car payments and credit cards and all that kind of stuff, right? So initially, you will probably have a lot of expenses. That being said, if you learn all this stuff now at a young age, like I have, where you don't really have that many expenses, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have a car payment, you don't have all this extra crap, right? You know, bills or land rates or whatever flipping crap goes on, you end up with a much, much less percentage of expenses, which means that you can put more money towards savings and your emergency fund and everything else, so that by the time you have those expenses, you already have a huge amount saved in your emergency fund, in your fire extinguishers, in your investing account or whatever it is, so that you're then protected when you dive into these, these big payment choices for a house and a car and all this extra stuff. And that's the idea. And that's essentially how it's worked out for me. I had no money before I did any of this. And now I've started managing it correctly. I have all of this extra money lying around that I could pull it all into one thing and then go and put a deposit on a house right now if I really wanted to. Sell off all my assets, go and buy a house. But what would be the point of that? Because if that house burns down, I don't have my emergency fund, I don't have my fire extinguisher account, I don't have any of this safety net, any of these safety nets set up in case something does happen. So I'm going to keep working on this. So by the time I turn, 24, 25, whatever time my parents kick me out of the house, basically, and I am forced to go and then find a place to live, or I choose to go and then find a place to live, I have loads of accessible liquid cash that I can choose to use for different things that I might, different situations that I might encounter when going out into the world and doing all of this stuff. And the problem is with people with just 2 bank accounts, when they don't really have a lot of money, they get enough in there and they go, oh my goodness, I can go and do this. I can go and start renting because I made this much money in a week. And then they go and rent, and then all of a sudden rent is sucking up 50, 60, 70% of their income, maybe even more than that, considering the housing markets at the moment. And then, they got to move back in like a month later because they can't keep up, because they have to get 2 jobs and never go out with their friends, never spend any money, and then just pull it all together just so they can live under this roof. So it makes no sense to me. And hopefully, if you're watching this and it makes no sense to you, then maybe this stream is a good place for you. So consider, following the stream, jumping on. Ask me any questions at all. I will give my best answer. And this isn't financial advice. It's just what I've learned. Because I'm not certified on any of that. Because I think it's dumb. I think it's financially illiterate to spend $60,000 in 4 years of your life just so you can get a piece of paper saying that you can do something. But that's neither here nor there. I digress. Right. Buckets. So the example he gives here, say you've got a tap or a faucet. If you're in America, I don't know what you call it. And water comes out the tap, right? That water is your income. And the tap is, I don't know, your job or wherever your money comes from. Now he says for 3 buckets, and he explains it that if you can't explain your financial setup in like a minute and like write it down on a napkin, then you don't know it well enough and you need to improve upon it. It's not good enough, right? So 3 buckets are the blow bucket, the mojo bucket, and the grow bucket. Now, the blow bucket is not related to cocaine. This bucket is for the stuff going out quickly, right? Expenses, a little bit of spending money, because that's just going to go out every single week regardless. Mojo bucket, safety money, your mojo account, your safety net. And the grow bucket is the long-term wealth. Now that accounts to your savings accounts. Now for me, I also have a separate investment account that I pull my money in and then put it towards stocks or whatever it is. That'll fall under the grow bucket as well. Grow your money, grow your wealth. Now the example he puts in here is blow bucket. 60% is going to go towards daily expenses. And then he says 10% to splurge, which is short-term spending, 10% to smile, which is long-term spending, right? Saving up for a holiday at the end of the year, and 20% into fire extinguisher, which is your safety net. Now, these are just the percentages that he suggests. If you get into this quick enough, you can ramp all those percentages up, or in this case, less down on daily expenses, and end up saving way more than what he suggests here. Because you don't need 60% into daily expenses. Even as an adult, I understand there are people out there struggling. I hope and pray that you get your finances together and start crushing it. And if you need help, this is what I'm here for. This is what I'm doing this for. But ideally, I would be terrified if 60% of my income was going towards expenses. Either way, that's just me. Now, he goes in a little bit deeper here, or more into detail, about how much percentage on, food, insurance, transport, utilities, and housing. Should that equate or relate to you, you can then obviously go into that a lot more and adjust it depending on your situation. Now, the mojo is emergency fund bucket. He, like a gentleman named Dave Ramsey, suggests to get this sorted as soon as humanly possible. So it says here, fill up to $2,000 to start. I think he says somewhere else in here it should be 3 months expenses. Dave Ramsey says the same thing. Basically, just get enough in there that you're covered for 3 months should the worst happen. And in this book, like Dave Ramsey, he says do whatever you can. Garage sale, Gumtree, eBay, work overtime, become an Uber driver on the weekends. Do whatever you can to get this money in there as quickly as possible. If you have enough money, you can put it in there straight away, great. If you don't, sell some stuff, right? Get rid of something so that you have that safety net, because you'll feel so much better as soon as you do. He also says here, sell a kidney. Don't do that. You need your kidneys. And the last bucket here is the grow bucket. This is property investments, stocks and bonds, rolled over super funds, and just super in general, right? So you can put more money into your super fund, and then what they do is they invest it into stocks on the stock market to slowly make you money over the course of your life. That is great. What I do is I choose to invest my money personally in stocks rather than going through the super, because I can research the exact stock that I want and pick it and buy it and track it. Otherwise, it's essentially the same thing. Super and you investing, essentially same situation. The good thing about doing it with them is that they know what they're doing, whereas if you do it, you have to learn a whole bunch of stuff. But I enjoy it, so I choose to learn. Now, he says all of this, you should check this once a week, and it'll take you 10 minutes a week. It's easy, right? If you can get to the point where you've got it really down packed, you don't really have to check it every week. I don't check mine every week. I might do it every 2 weeks, I think, if it needs updating. Otherwise, it's the same thing day in, day out. Now, he talks about paying off all your debts as well. So if you have a lot of debt, he'll talk about paying all of that off. Dave Ramsey also does that. If you want to look up he's got a book, forget what it's called, but he speaks about paying off debt in that as well. Basically, you pay off, start from the smallest, go up to the biggest. Pay as many of them off as you possibly can, except, I believe, your mortgage. You leave your mortgage at the end, but you pay off all your credit cards, your cars, everything, right? Everything's taking money away from you. Pay that shit off. Now, he goes in, I believe that's all of this. Yeah, smallest debt to largest debt, except your mortgage. Pay everything off except your mortgage. And then obviously, I guess, work on paying off your mortgage. And if you have a lot of people going to uni, if you have student debts, he says here not to worry about. He says it'll look after yourself. He says it doesn't, it's not charged interest either, so it doesn't really accumulate. So you have to make more than $47,014 a year. That was in 21-22. So it may have changed today as of 2024 or in the future if you're watching this. But HEX is not like the US, right? It doesn't accumulate. It'll just sit there until you're earning enough that they warrant you to go, okay, you can now start paying this off. Don't worry about that. Now he has a whole bunch of FAQs about all of those specific topics as well. You can read that, figure that out, and personalize it to your situation. And that is essentially it. That is your bank account, paying off your debt, getting your super in check, and that's as far as you need to carry it. Now, the second part of this book is growing your money. How to save more, how to buy your home in 20 months, how to do all this other bits and pieces, right? Turn your money into more money, which is what we're all about. He talks about crypto in this book as well. Obviously, this was in 2022, so crypto was around. Becoming a business owner, making the most of sales, talks about managing your emotions, all sorts of stuff in this book about growing your wealth, which is fantastic, right? That's what we love. How to put your investing on autopilot. And this is like half the book as well. The first half is just putting your bank accounts into order. But all of this second half is about turning your money into more money. And what we might do is go over that another day, because I wanted to focus specifically on the bank accounts and getting your money into order. So I might schedule this as a different topic. Part 3, harvest, which is making, finally getting the fruits of your labor for investing. How to save massive amounts of money, all of these different bits and pieces in here to help you set up not only for retirement, but for 10 years down the track, 5 years, 1 year even. If you start this and 1 year and you stick with it, 1 year later, you'll be 100 times better off than you were, when you started. Therefore, you will have been better than you were before, which is the goal in life, right? So yeah, that's essentially the book. There are a few other bits and pieces in this book about leaving your kids or grandkids, the stuff in your will, leaving them money, how much money you retire with, saving up a 6-figure house deposit in 20 months. That's, good stuff to use. I don't really need that at the moment. I'm focusing more on the grow section, so that by the time I need to save up for a house, it'll happen a lot quicker, hopefully, than 20 months. So yes, this book has my stamp of approval. It is excellent, and it is the first book I think that anyone should read if they're serious about getting your finances together. And if you are serious about getting your finances together, go out, Big W, Kmart, Dimmicks, any bookstore, eBay, Amazon even, get this book and read it all the way through and do what it says in the book, right? And it will change your life. Not to be dramatic, but it's good. It is really good. I've read a few books that are fine, a few books that I didn't get anything out of. This one was one of the best books that I've ever actually read. And then once you read this, you can move on to other more popular financial books like Richest Man in Babylon, another fantastic book. I have read that, and it's great. It is really good, the things it speaks about. There's another one. What other ones have I got up there? Oh, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, another one. To change your mindset about how money works. Now, the mindset in that is slightly different to Barefoot Investor, but the same principles apply, right? It's like learning to drive a car. Once you know how the car functions, the clutch in, changing gears, braking, accelerating, the same principles or basic formula works for trucks and buses and bikes, right? And that's what this book will do. It'll give you that basic general knowledge that I think everyone needs. So yes, that brings us to the end of this stream, or if you're watching this on YouTube, this episode. I appreciate you staying through the whole thing if you have seen it all the way to the end here, and hopefully that means you've bought the book and you're starting to change your life around. I had no money and was stressed all the time about money and didn't know what I was doing, and twiddled my thumbs and pissed my way through the first few years of my financial journey, I guess, if you will, in towards adulthood. And as soon as I read this book and implemented it and got serious, I'm now stress-free about money. Everything that I'm paying for, I know is paid for every single fortnight, and I have wealth on the side. And if you're in that exact position where you might have a lot of money, but you don't really know how to make it work for you, or to grow, or to invest it, or how to manage it properly, I'm here for that. Send me a message either, on Twitch or on Instagram. My Instagram name should be down below. There should be a button for it. Send me a message. I'd love to have a chat about it and help you get there, right? So yeah, I appreciate everyone watching, and best of financial luck with you all, or not luck.